Okay guys, welcome back to the Rough Cuts Garage. Today we're going to be swapping out the transmission mount bushings on our first gen Cummins. So the parts that we have here today are polyurethane bushings for the transmission mount from First Gen Industries. The link will be down in the description below if you want to pick up these parts. The components, as you see here, you get two sets of bushings. So this is what it looks like when it's completed. There'll be a bolt that goes through here on the transmission mounting bracket. And then this is the bottom part here, and then your metal piece goes in there, and then this goes on top. The reason I'm going to be swapping out the bushings is the rubber bushings on there are probably 30 years old, and I can feel them to the touch. They're very spongy and worn out. So to better support the transmission, I want to replace them with these polyurethane ones. In order to properly support the transfer case and transmission with my jack, I'm going to remove the skid plate. You can see the transmission shakes around quite a bit on these spent bushings. Alright, so the size of the bolts that go through here are 15/16. So you just push up here and just be careful of your fingers. So you've got washer on top. Here's the spent rubber bushing. Here's that little metal core that goes in the middle. And then I'm not gonna put my fingers in there because I don't want them to get pinched if it drops. Now I'm gonna jack up the transmission slightly. There's the upper one, it's super soft, and the lower ones are even, like this one is, you know, cracked. Here's the inner spacers here, and this one is just all sorts of messed up. Okay, so there's washers that are existing on the inside of this plate here, lying flat underneath here. So you gotta make sure those are in line. Take your new bushing, and then without getting your fingers in there, slide it in. And line it up with the hole. And drop this guy down in the middle. And then you take your other one and you can put it on top. This guy's gonna drop down in the middle. And then do the same with the other side. Okay, so now you can see here we've got the bolt, washer, bushing. And then on the other side we got bushing, and then washer and bolt underneath there. Alright, so I've now lowered the transmission onto the bushings. So these nuts here I've got just on the bolts right there. And they need to be torqued down to 150 foot-pounds. Okay, so now that they're torqued down, you can see the transmission ain't budging anymore. Alright, so now we're going to install the skid plate. The factory service manual just states install the skid plate. It doesn't actually specify any torque specs for those 4 bolts, so I'm just going to make them good and tight. That's 11/16 in the bottom, 5/8 on top. Okay, so we've got the skid plate back on. The bushings are in place, and the bolts have been torqued down to 150 foot-pounds as per the factory service manual. So I think that sums up the job for replacing the transmission mount bushings on a first-gen Cummins. There's definitely more vibrations in the cab. We'll go for a test drive and see how it feels. Hopefully the vibrations will go away after some time of driving and the bushings wear themselves in. But yeah, I definitely feel more vibrations in the cab after putting the polyurethane bushings on. So it feels better now that the truck is moving and it's at a higher RPM. When it's idling, it definitely rattles a lot more, or at least it's translated to the cab. I don't know if it's a placebo of the fact that I just replaced the bushings, that I think everything feels tighter, or everything actually is tighter. Okay, so that sums up the install of the polyurethane bushings on our first gen Cummins. Thanks for watching, and we'll hope to see you next time. Cheers.